Hi there. I'm going to show you today how to rotate objects in the Geometry Sticky of Classpad.net. I'm going to show you two different ways. One where you can define a specific angle and rotate it that way, and another where you can use a slider where you can actually see what's happening. So to first start, we're going to get a Geometry Sticky out here. And I'm going to leave the settings as they are at default, which means my points are going to label. And notice it's in the Draw tool, so I'm just going to draw a shape. And so we'll make a shape. So I've got a shape automatically labeled, right? So now what I want to do is rotate. So one thing is I'm going to select the object I want to rotate, and I want to show you what happens. So under my menu items, I am going to construct a rotation. So here's all the different transformations I can do, and I want rotation. And since I've selected my object, it's going to tell me what's missing, and it says you need to select a point. So I could select a point on the object, and it would then turn around itself. So let's just do that, and I could select any point I want. So let's select a point, and now it's going to ask me for the angle of rotation. So here's where I can manually put in an angle of rotation. So let's make it maybe 67. We're just going to make up an angle here and hit execute. And it is now going to rotate that object based on my angle of rotation that I gave it. I could change the color. I could measure coordinates and get some information about that. But that's the simplest way to rotate, is you simply select an object, select a point either on the object or off an object, and then decide your own angle. You can go back and change this angle at any time. So let's say I want it to rotate now maybe 90 degrees. What does that look like? And you'll notice that it then moves the shape. So lots of explorations you can do very quickly simply by changing that angle. What would it look like if I had picked a point outside of the rotation? So let's do the same thing, except this time we're going to rotate outside of the shape. So let's make a similar shape. Okay, that ended up being a triangle. That's fine. I could also, before I do the rotation, change my color if I want my image to be different from the original. So now I'm going to do the same thing. Select the object. Actually, another thing, I don't have to actually select the object first. I could just go right to, oh yes I do. Oh, sorry, I have to be in. This is good. I have a point. So now let's do construct, and now the first thing it's going to ask me is what are we constructing? And so notice I didn't select the object first this time, so its first set of directions says select object. So I want to select that object. That's all that I want to rotate, so I'm going to say okay. Now it says select a point, and I'm going to select the point that's outside of the shape. So there's my point. And again, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to ask me what angle. So let's do that 67 again first. And so now you'll notice the difference. When the point I select is on the object, the second image just rotates around that point in the object, so they stay close to each other. But because the point I chose to rotate around is outside of my object, my image is outside, not attached to the first object. So that's kind of a neat thing. And I can move that point, so notice how location of that point changes where the rotated image is. And I can explore things, and just as with the last one, I can change the angle. So let's make it 90. And students can then explore. You could, a nice thing about when you have the point outside of the angle is if you get some segments and connect, corresponding points, you'll notice, so I just connected C to its C prime corresponding point, and you'll notice that my angle of rotation is 90, and this sure does look like a 90-degree angle, so there's a nice connection here. I can do the same thing up here. I could connect B to C. Well, they're already connected. When you use a point within an object, they're already connected. So here's one way to do rotations. Select the object, define where you want the point of rotation to be, either on the shape or outside of the shape, and then give a specific angle, which you can then change at any time. Another way, and the last way, is you don't have to have a specific angle. You can use a slider. So let's just show you again what you would do. So I'm going to, again, make a shape. Let's try to make this one a little more exciting. There we go. I selected a shape, and now I'm going to, well, let's put a point here too, because I kind of like the way it looks outside. So we got a point. So now I'm going to construct a rotation. So again, you're going into the construct menu, choosing rotation, and it's going to give you some directions up here. So I'm going to select my object. I'm done selecting. Now I'm going to select the point. This time I'm going to choose one outside. And instead of putting in a specific angle, I'm going to put in a word or a letter. So I'm just going to say angle. And you'll notice what happens is, if I put in a letter or a word, I get a slider. So this slider now represents the angle. So notice that the angle is going from 1 to 360 because rotations can go all around the circle. Now I actually want this value here to be 0, because what happens when it's 0? And it's at angle 1. So let's see what happens if I have my angle be 0. It doesn't look like I have a second image. What happens if I then start moving that angle of rotation? And now I can see, as I increase the angles, my second image, my rotated image, is moving around in a circle. So you can have a lot of really nice connections here. What's it look like when it's 180? And let's see if we can stop it, or actually I can move my slider to be 180. There we go. So now what? So what are some things I can make? This looks just like a reflection. So lots of connections you can make if you use a slider instead of a specific angle, because now you can explore all the different angles and where things look. So this is just how to do rotations with Classpad.net. Lots of options, so have fun exploring.